You get into office and the government's been shut down ever since. But this compromise bill, or compromise proposal from the president, your thoughts on that?
Well, I think the president was right to say, okay, we've both sort of gone to our respective corners here, Republicans and Democrats, and there's no particular movement. And he said, all right, I'm going to put a proposal on the table and see if we can't get a little bit of something for each party and see if we can get a deal done. I was surprised that Speaker Pelosi came out, even before he was finished with his speech, saying, this is dead on arrival. I think a more productive approach would have been to say, look, I appreciate the effort by the president. I don't agree with it entirely. I have a counter proposal. So let's have a back and forth. That's normally the way you'd expect serious people to treat this kind of setting. But you know, there are a lot of people that should not be hurting, that are in the middle of this crossfire, and it's really unfortunate, and in many respects, for many families, more than just unfortunate, really tragic.
Yeah, I wanted to talk to you about that. I'm sure you're going to hear from them tonight at your town hall, if you haven't already heard from people. Furloughed workers at the federal level, living paycheck to paycheck, wondering what to do at this point. What's your message to them?
I think it's outrageous that we've shut down government over an item that is a normal budget item that should have been able to be negotiated between the parties in Washington. There has been a bill that provided for funding for border security that was passed by both Republicans and Democrats in the House and the Senate. We should have built on that, but instead you see a battle erupting between, if you will, the White House and the Speaker of the House, and they just don't seem to be able to move. And those of us that are trying to get a deal done are proposing ideas. And last week, for instance, some 10 Democrats and 10 Republicans in the Senate came together with a proposal for a letter that would begin negotiations between the parties, but just didn't go anywhere.
Who's to blame at this point, from your perspective?
You know, I think both parties are to blame. I do believe that now that the president has put a proposal on the table, that it's up to Speaker Pelosi to counter proposal, or make a counter proposal, or to find some other way to bridge the gap. But just saying no and crossing your arms is not acceptable.
Do you see the proposal the president laid out as a reasonable one that both sides should be able to get behind?
I think the president's proposal is a reasonable one. I think it was a good faith effort on his part. If Speaker Pelosi thinks it needs to be improved for her party in some way, then come back with the improvements she suggests. But just to reject it out of hand, I think, is a mistake. And I think you're going to find, with the number of people that are really suffering under this, that the pressure will build for the Speaker to come back with some response other than just no.
Where do you think Republicans should be willing to give in this compromise bill? Like more of a permanent DACA? Would that be reasonable in your mind?
Well, I think the president has pointed out that in order to have a permanent change to the Dreamers, or the DACA individuals, that he would like to see a fence proposal that doesn't just cover a few more miles, but one that covers the entire distance between Mexico and the United States. So there's going to have to be some proportionality in the negotiation. But again, the way things normally get done in Washington, where you have two parties that have to both find something acceptable, is that each party has to get something. And that's the nature of a negotiation, and that's the kind of deal making that we have to have.
So much is being made about the wall. What do you see as the right solution there? Extended across the border or in portions, as you say? What would you feel comfortable with?
Well, ultimately, I think you need to have a wall that, or a fence, or technology that protects our border that goes from coast to coast. When I say coast to coast, I mean the Mexico coast to coast, such that we don't have people who go to the place where there's not a fence and just bring in people that are being paid to come into the country, or people that have drugs and so forth. At the same time, recognize that this is necessary to have a fence, but it's not sufficient. We have to have a system that penalizes employers who hire people that they know are here illegally. We also have to have a tracking system for those that get visas to come here legally and then stay after the visa has expired. These are things we have to put in place if we really want to cut back on illegal immigration.
You mentioned some thoughts on Pelosi. What about the leadership from the Senate? Do you think they're doing an appropriate job in McConnell and Schumer?
Well, I think Mitch McConnell was the one that encouraged the president this week to put a new offer on the table. And so Leader McConnell is doing what he can to get things going between the White House and the Speaker. And I do believe that in the case of Chuck Schumer, he's lining up behind the Speaker. So I don't know that we're going to see him making any overtures that are different than the ones that have come from her.
So can you get this through the Senate, do you think?
Well, it's not up to me.
Not you.
Yeah, okay.
But the Senate as a body. I realized that as I said that.
I think you'll find that Republicans will, by and large, support the president's proposal. There are some Republicans that are concerned that the president went too far and are reluctant to sign on to his proposal. I do support the president's proposal in this regard and think it can get the government open again, and we can then go to work putting in place a more complete reform of our immigration program. But I can't tell you where the Democrats are going to come out. I hope that enough of them, 6 or 7, say, yes, let's get government open again, and then work down the road on a comprehensive design. That I hope happens, and we'll find out this week. I think the vote's going to be this coming Thursday.